Ladies and gentlemen, let us all rise for the arrival of the Honorable Senate President and the Senators of the Republic of the Philippines.
Ladies and gentlemen, today being the day fixed by the Constitution for the convening of the Congress of the Philippines for its regular session once a year, the first session of the first regular session of the Senate in the 18th Congress of the Philippines is hereby called to order. Senator Sani Angara will lead the chamber in prayer.
Panginoon, ngayong araw na ito, inihahandog po namin sa inyo ang isang bagong kapulungan na humihiling ng inyong gabay mula ngayon hanggang sa mga susunod na panahon. Dalangin po namin na sa panibagong yugto ng aming pagsisilbi sa bayan ay higit pang gabay ang inyong ipagkaloob sa amin. Naway, biyayaan niyo kami ng dagdag kaalaman at tibay ng loob sa pagharap sa bawat pagsubok. Lord, bless this august chamber and the public servants gathered here. Guide us all, especially our new colleagues, so that in collaboration with each other we may craft even more meaningful legislation and enact long-lasting change for our people. Pagkalooban niyo po kami ng mas malawak na pangunawa sa mga pang-araw-araw na talastasan at iadya sa anumang di pagkakaunawaan. Panginoon, manaig ang pagkakaisa sa bulwagang ito para sa kapakanan ng paglilingkod sa bayan, sa sambayanan at sa mamamayan. Ito po ang aming panalangin na itinataas namin sa inyo, Panginoon. Amen.
And the Senate choir will lead us in the singing of the National Anthem, and we will ask that each and everyone remain standing as the group will also lead us in the singing of the Senate hymn entitled Senadong Marangal.
Sa manlulupi, di ka pasisihin, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy, sa langit mong bagao, may ginagandula at awit sa paglay minamahal, ang isang ng matawat mo'y tagumpay na naglilingin, ang bituin at araw niya kailan, may magdilim, lupa ng araw ng at ipagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pa, may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Puso at diwa ng Senado ang katwiran.
We thank the Senate choir for that beautiful rendition. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we're in receipt of the NBOC Resolution Number 002-19 from the Commission on Elections as National Board of Canvassers for Senators and Party List Representatives in the elections held on May 13, 2019. I move that the resolution be inserted into the records and request the Secretary, Mr. President, to read only the COMELEC resolution's resolving clause. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, COMELEC Resolution 002-19 is deemed read and inserted into the records. The Secretary will read the COMELEC's resolution's resolving clause.
COMELEC Resolution, National Board of Canvassers, NBOC Resolution Number 00-19. Now, therefore, by virtue of the powers vested under the 1987 Constitution, the Omnibus Election Code, Batas Pambansa Bilang 881, and other election laws, the Commission on Elections, sitting en banc as the National Board of Canvassers, hereby declares the following candidates as the duly elected senators of the Republic of the Philippines in the May 13, 2019 national and local elections, ranked according to the number of votes obtained by each, to serve a term of 6 years, beginning at noon of June 30, 2019, in accordance with Section 4, Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines. 1. Villar Cynthia A., 25,283,727. Number 2, Paul Yamanzares Mary Grace Natividad S., 22,029,788. 3. Go Christopher Lawrence T., 20,657,702. 4. Cayetano Pilar Juliana S., 19,789,019. 5. De La Rosa Ronald M., 19,004,225. 6. Angara Juan Edgardo M., 18,161,862. 7. Lapid Manuel M., 16,965,464. 8. Marcos Maria Imelda Josefa R., 15,882,628. 9. Tolentino Francis N., 15,510,026. 10. Pimentel Aquilino Martin III L., 14,668,665. 11. Bong Revilla Ramon Jr. B., 14,624,445. 12. Binay Maria Lourdes Nancy S., 14,504,936. So ordered.
We shall now proceed with the formal oath-taking of the newly elected senators. May we request that they take their oaths in their respective seats. Please stand and take your copies of the oath of office. Please raise your right hands and repeat after me. I state your name in full. Having been elected to the position of senator, do hereby solemnly swear that I will well and faithfully discharge, to the best of my abilities, the duties of my present position and of all others I may hereafter hold under the Republic of the Philippines, that I will support and defend the Constitution of the Philippines, that I will obey the laws and legal orders, decrees promulgated by the duly constituted authorities, and maintain true faith and allegiance to the Republic of the Philippines, and that I impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily, without mental reservation or purpose of evasion, So help me God. Please accept our warmest congratulations. Thank you. The Secretary may now call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Lacson, Lapid, Marcos, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
With 22 senators present, the champion still abroad, the chair declares the presence of a quorum.
Mr. President?
Majority Leader,
May I move to suspend the session for 1 minute?
hearing no objection, the session is suspended.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we now proceed with the election of the President of the Senate.
Is there any objection? There being none, we will now proceed with the election of the President of the Senate. Senator Zubiri is recognized to deliver his nomination speech.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, following his stellar performance as Senate President in the 17th Congress, it is my privilege to nominate Senator Vicente C. Soto III to once again assume the position of Senate President of the 18th Congress. One of our most esteemed statesmen today, Senator Soto has had a long and accomplished legislative career that has been marked by numerous elections as both minority and majority leader. Prior to his Senate presidency, Mr. President, no one is more familiar with the ways of the Senate than he is. Time and again, his colleagues have bestowed upon him their faith in his capabilities as a leader. Today, I ask my colleagues to join me in doing the same. It has been an astounding 27 years since the Filipino people first entrusted Senator Soto to be their champion in the Senate. And since then, he has shown his unfaltering commitment to return that trust in the form of solid legislative moves to uplift the lives of the people. But some of the landmark laws that he steered into passage, or some of the landmark laws, Mr. President, he steered into passage are the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002, the Anti-Drunk and Drugged Driving Act of 2012, the Philippine Fisheries Code, the Rural Farm Schools Act, the Emergency Relief and Protection Act, the Anti-Hazing Law, and the Masustansyang Pagkain para sa Batang Pilipino Act. Laws that respond to the problems across sectors, directing the nation towards a future where Filipino children will never know hunger, poverty, violence, and drugs. Under Senator Soto's able and wise stewardship as Senate President, we ended the 17th Congress on a remarkably productive note, with 406 bills passed into law and 186 more in the pipeline awaiting the President's signature. Having had the great honor of working closely with him in my capacity as Majority Leader, I could personally attest that were it not for his expert guidance, we would have not been able to achieve those numbers. Whatever challenges that we face as a body, Senator Soto always showed us a way through. His approach to decision-making is both firm and understanding, fair to the interests not only of any political party, but of the Filipino people. His hard work and discipline as our steadfast leader has steered plenary sessions into the right direction, while still allowing for, and indeed encouraging, healthy democratic debate among interpellators and sponsors. His deep respect for the proceedings of the Senate has spurred him to keep a perfect record of attendance. Senator Soto's legislative career speaks for itself, so I will say that on a more personal level, I believe he is the best man for the job. He is a great mentor, generous with his wealth of knowledge and experience. He is a man of great intellect, but also a man of great humor, knowing just how to break tension during heated debates, also form camaraderie and keep a productive atmosphere on the floor. He is an accomplished artist with an intimate line of connection to the hearts of the Filipino people. Senator Vicente C. Soto is a workhorse, an institution in the Senate, a man of the people, and I hope you all agree with me, he is the Senate President we need for this Congress. So I move, Mr. President, to nominate Senator Vicente C. Soto III as the Senate President. Mr. President, to second my nomination, may we recognize Senator Panfilo Lacson to deliver as well his nomination speech.
It is the distinct honor of this representation to second the motion of the distinguished gentleman from Mindanao, Mr. President, Mr. Presiding Officer.
There being other nominations, Mr. President? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. President. My apologies. I know that you wanted to deliver a nomination speech for the good Senate President. May we recognize Senator Pia Cayetano to deliver on your behalf.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. It is my privilege to deliver the nomination speech on behalf of the Presiding Officer, Senator Recto, and the Nationalista Party. The truth is, Senator Tito is better in writing laws than in writing songs. He is better in putting ideas into policies than words into music. Yes, he might have built an impressive catalog of songs, but this does not compare to his greatest hits in lawmaking. He has amassed these in more than 30 years, from that day in 1988 when he first banged the gavel as presiding officer of the Quezon City Council, to that Wednesday night last month when he gavelled the closing of business of the productive Senate of the 17th Congress. On his own, he has authored laws too many to count on every issue that matters. But while the Senate scoreboard displays the names of the sponsors of a bill, it does not tally the hours one has spent in finalizing and finessing a measure others had authored, but one seeks to improve. In this, Tito, through many Congresses, had shown mastery of parliamentary skills, honed by years of serving as majority leader and matched only by the generosity to share it. Tito has an ear for music, and they say an eye for beauty too, as shown by his lovely wife. And this willingness to listen more than to speak, he had applied in composing laws too. Kahit presiding officer siya, nakikinig yan at bigla na lang may itatanong sa sponsor o kaya magi-interject sa interpellation. And sometimes he will wade into the middle of it, yield the chair, and join the merry debate on the floor. There's another aspect that this keen perception of his has served the Senate. An expert in retail politics, Tito has kept his ears constantly pressed to the ground. When you have Tito, you do not need a political weather vane to gauge the public sentiment. When a major bill is being discussed, I have made it a point to always ask, Tito, ano kaya tingin ng tao dito? Because more important than the prose of legislation is the public reception to it. And he has always been prescient in his prediction. But it does not mean he will always go where the wind blows or to rush where the applause is waiting, because in many fights he had waged, he would rather be right than popular. As an artist, Tito knows that no matter how beautiful the score, it depends on the symphony which will play it. And in this, Tito has proven himself as the skillful conductor of 24 independent republics who like to toot their own horn, beat their own drum, and sing their own song. And this is the same formula which two other Senate Presidents in this assembly, Frank and Coco, had employed in making sure that despite our diversity, that despite the fact that we may not always sing in perfect harmony always, but as a whole, we must not sing out of tune with the people. The people's impression of the Senate is what they see on TV of 24 men and women sitting in this hall or grilling witnesses in one of the rooms. The fact is, most of our labors are done outside the glare of Klieg lights in conference rooms where the humdrum of policy making is endured for hours. The beating heart of the Senate is not in this volleyball court-sized chamber, which comes to life at 3 p.m. 3 times a week, but in rooms where policies are discussed and debated. The session hall may be the showroom, but the production line lies somewhere else. It has been said that the Senate in session is the Senate in exhibition, but the Senate conducting committee hearings is a Senate at work. And on this, Tito has shown to be an adept manager, working behind the scenes, always checking if the production line of laws is moving, and above all, giving each one of us the independence to pursue our advocacies. And he assesses a bill solely on its merits and never the political persuasion of the one sponsoring it. The Soto rule on bill analysis is this: when it is good for the country, the majority-minority divide dissolves. It is for these many reasons that I have just mentioned that I second the nomination of Vicente Castelo Soto III as our Senate President. Thank you.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. There are no other nominations on the floor. I therefore move that we close the period of nomination and proceed with the nominal voting. I so move.
It has been moved by the Majority Leader and seconded by Senator Lacson and Senator Pia that the nomination be closed and that we elect the distinguished gentleman from Quezon City,
Rather
Cebu,
by viva voce, Mr. President.
and Nueva Ecija,
Since there
Senator
are no
Vicente Soto, by acclamation as Senate President. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved pursuant to Rule 2 of the Rules of the Senate. There being no other candidate for the position of Senate President, the voting shall be by viva voce. Those voting for Senator Soto, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say nay. Senator Vicente Soto is hereby proclaimed as having been elected Senate President. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we form, yes, may we recognize distinguished gentleman from Iloilo, Senator Franklin Dillon.
Senator Dillon is recognized.
Mr. President, for the record, we wish to place of record that this representation, Senator Pangilinan and Senator Risa Hontiveros, cast an abstention for the election of the Senate President. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we form a committee of 3 senators to be constituted to notify the Senate President-elect, Mr. President. And these are Senators Grace Poe, Senator Nancy Binay, and Senator Coco Pimentel, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Senators Poe, Binay, and Pimentel shall constitute the committee to notify the Senate President-elect.
May I ask for a 1-minute suspension of
Is
session?
there any objection? Hearing none, the session is hereby suspended.
sign thing, you will be administering the oath.
Majority Leader,
Yes, we can resume session, Mr. President.
the session is resumed. We shall now proceed with the oath taking. May we request Senator Vicente C. Soto III to ascend the rostrum. May we also ask the family of the Senate President-elect to join us. Considering the solemnity of the occasion, may we ask the members of the Senate and our guests to please stand. The Honorable Senator Panfilo M. Lacson will administer the oath to the Senate President-elect.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I, Vicente Soto III,
Having been elected to the position of,
having been elected to the position of Senate President,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will well and faithfully discharge,
that I will well and faithfully discharge,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
the duties of my present position,
the duties of my present position,
and of all others I may hereafter hold,
and of all others I may hereafter hold,
under the Republic of the Philippines,
under the Republic of the Philippines,
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the Philippines,
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the Philippines,
that I will obey the laws, legal orders, and decrees
that I will obey the laws and legal orders and decrees
promulgated by the duly constituted authorities,
promulgated by the duly constituted authorities,
and maintain true faith and allegiance
and maintain true faith and allegiance
to the Republic of the Philippines,
to the Republic of the Philippines,
and that I will impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily,
and that I will impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily,
without mental reservation
without mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, I think, yeah.
Secretary?
Yeah,
Sabihin mo yata, may bigyan ng tira.
yeah, yeah. You can take over now. May we hear from the Senate President his acceptance speech.
Thank you very much. My dear and esteemed colleagues, the former senators, my colleagues in the Ninth Congress, Senator Kit Tatad, Senator Sani Alvarez, to the members of the Diplomatic Corps, the members of the Cabinet here present, my families and friends, Your Excellencies, Your Honors, magandang umaga po at maraming salamat sa inyong pagdalo sa Senado sa araw na ito. Welcome and thank you for your time and effort to honor us with your presence at the beginning of the first regular session of the Senate of the 18th Congress of the Republic of the Philippines. But of course, a most special welcome and heartfelt congratulations to the mix of familiar and new faces of 12 senators freshly mandated to join this chamber in the recently held May 2019 elections. Salamat sa inyo. Thank you for electing me today as the 23rd Senate President. Like all beginnings, this day is full of hope and promise for the lifetime of the 18th Congress and the nation. A new wind has continued to blow over the political horizon, and the unexpected happened. It all started in 2016 when a straight-talking leader emerged. A number cringed at his humor, his style, his sometimes irreverence. We admire the progress of nearby states brought by authoritarian leaders, yet criticize our very own. The diplomacy of many years under other mild-mannered presidents failed to bring back the Balangiga bells and made us a garbage dump of neat and progressive nations. Only a tough stance resulted in solutions we have long been waiting for. And the 2019 saga of political change continues. The youth of the land had been awakened and risen, sending forth a clear signal that they can put their very own to the peaks of political power. They have taught us that poverty is not a hindrance to public service, nor youth a disadvantage. We welcome their entry into the political ring, both their interest and active participation. The same phenomenon is happening 10,000 miles away with articulate young and immigrant-rooted politicians hurling stones at their Goliaths. Millennials have seized the towers of social media, debated in their chat groups, and launched to fruition the candidates of their generation. Rizal's hope in them had not been misplaced. His letters reached their destination in 3 months, while his millennial heirs sent messages in 3 seconds to any part of the globe. His modes of transport then were ships and river ferries, and horsepower then really came from an animal. Though times have changed, the social ills of our heroes' times remain tenaciously around. Poverty, lack of infrastructure and services for education and health, a lingering sensitivity to foreign views and presence still inhabit the corners of the Filipino mind. For some of our countrymen, keeping body and soul together is a daily challenge. Getting a high school or college diploma or education is a major obstacle due to the need for daily earnings. Health facilities and doctors' services are Manila or city-centric, far away from the barangays they reside in. My esteemed colleagues, we are legislators. The Latin roots of the word convey the meaning of proposer of laws. That is our main task, to craft bills, debate, and refine them, get them approved by the other house, and seek the signature of the President to turn them into laws of the land. Thus, we are primarily legislators. We are not prosecutors. We are not judges. Our hearings had been known to be precursors of high blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes, and even self-injury. It should not be the case. The Constitution expressly provides that the rights of the invitees must be respected, and also because being taxpayers, our invitees are our employers. But I do not mean to soften our powers. I only mean that our inquiries should really be in aid of legislation. Although I also believe that those who lie in our face must stay in our premises, or perhaps Muntinlupa, if they continue to do so. What I'm only saying is that we are legislators primarily. My dear colleagues, thank you is a very weak expression to convey the deep sense of gratitude that I feel today for the honor of being your Senate President. To be elected at large by the whole nation is indeed a rare honor and privilege for 24 in a more than 100 million population. And to be elected by those elected, as you did to me, is so much more humbling than a greater source of pride. You have gifted me the honor of being your Senate President. I know the context of my position is different from what is usually understood. I did not become your superior. I am simply a presider of your sessions. Any concept other than that is misplaced and unwarranted. Additionally, I am your listener, your advisor, if you so desire, your enabler for anything within my power to do so. And the reason is simple. The Senate is made up of 24 independent republics. You bring here the diversity of your backgrounds, the fierceness of your advocacies, the ambitions you keep secret from others. Simply stated, I am primus inter pares, as Roman law-inspired lawyers say, first among equals. And these lawyers may be right. For the Senate, as an institution of governance is considered to have been there in the ancient Rome of the Caesars. The images remain: the politics, the oratory, the intrigues. It is for us, the inheritors of this legal tradition, to focus on truth, justice, peace, and the common good. To reiterate the vow that I made when I first took this post, we will continue to nourish the trust and confidence that our country has bestowed on us by ensuring that this Senate will remain cooperative but independent, balanced, transparent, and sincere. And so, thank you for this laurel wreath of victory, and I hope it does not distract me from treading the path of true service to the people. On a personal note, allow me to thank my family for bearing the life of a politician. To Helen, my love, my children and grandchildren that God has sent us, and to the Filipino people for this chance to serve. Likewise, I offer this day to my father, Marcelino, who worked within the then Central Bank, and my mother, Dr. Herminia Castelo of Nueva Ecija, a staunch feminist in those early times. And finally, I dedicate the honor of this post may bring to the memory of my late grandfather, Senator Vicente Soto of Cebu, a man for all seasons, a journalist, man of letters and of the arts, and a regular dissenter to the great Manuel Luis Quezon, the first Senate President in 1916. Thank you, and all the best wishes for today and always.
Congratulations,
Majority
Mr.
Leader.
President. We're honored to have you back in the Helm.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, the Senate will now elect the Senate President pro tempore. May I be recognized to deliver the nomination speech, Mr. President?
The majority leader is recognized.
Thank you. What makes a Senate President pro tempore? What made colleagues vote for Senator Recto as the second highest official in the Senate in 2013 and again in 2017? I will venture to answer these questions. Mr. President, I have the privilege of nominating Senator Ralph Recto as the Senate President pro tem of the 18th Congress, and it is a post he was unanimously elected by his peers in our last Congress. He served us well. He was a facilitator, a unifier, and a leader. He was also a critic and a bull, but not a bully, with a calculator, Mr. President. He personified that space between a rock and a hard place. In 24 years as a Solon, he consistently shone the light, the numbers on the dark and gray areas of a bill. Or during blue ribbon inquiries, helping us uncover the truth and make better laws. He reminds us of Plato, who warned, "We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light." Senator Recto has time and again heeded that warning. He has shown that light. Give him the goods so he could do the numbers, and he will help you craft your pet bill into a pro-people, pro-pamilyang Filipino law. I had the opportunity of seeing him in action during my first term in the House of Representatives, it being his third and last, where he espoused social reform and poverty alleviation, trade liberalization, creation of economic zones, and reforming the tax code. And I'm happy to note that while I was still in the lower house in 2006, he supported me here in the Senate with one of my pet bills, which was the biofuels law. He was a true recto to the core. In 2001, older colleagues welcomed their Benjamin and baptized him the good Nicomedes. He was given the enviable task of chairing the Ways and Means Committee. He proved to be a barako who munched on algebra, calculus, and what have you, as the government's dakilang fundraiser. Thereupon, he rightfully earned the title, and to this day, he still is, Mr. President, the undefeated boy numero ng Senado. His grandfather, Claro M. Recto, said, "Nationalism is not a passing emotion, not a naive longing for trappings of sovereignty. It is persevering, militant, and mature." Senator Recto, Mr. President, displays such perseverance, militancy, and maturity as he crafted laws that increase social goods and services to Filipinos, especially the poor, Mr. President. Among those are granting 100,000 to each centenarian here and abroad, free public Wi-Fi, along with the creation of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, protecting OFWs by strengthening OWA, more benefits to persons with disabilities, more benefits to national athletes and coaches, increasing tax exemption ceilings on 13-month pay and other benefits, PhilHealth coverage for all senior citizens, the Philippine National Railways Charter Extension, the K-12 program. There are so many, Mr. President. I may take half an hour just reading all the laws that he authored and co-authored. These are just to name a few of the hundreds. And there are many, many more. We clearly recall how Senator Recto, Mr. President, hammered on to my own initial protuberance about the major peace-building law, the Bangsamoro Organic Law, the BOL, Mr. President. By the way, we have with us in this chamber, the Chief Minister, Alhaj Murad, is with us today. His questions, Mr. President, extended the sessions and the bicameral conference committee meetings into the late hours. He tinkered on each formula incorporated. He, very early on, signified support. Then came his tough questions on funding the law. But he, in fact, Mr. President, and I want to put this on record today, saved the day for the Bangsamoro and its people, and peace in Mindanao region for the whole country. Senator Recto's efforts, and of many others who graced this hall, the BOL would not have been an unfunded law gathering dust. Mr. President, today, the Bangsamoro is a functional body funded and supported by the Filipino people, and we thank you, Senator Ralph. On his 15th year as senator, Mr. President, I know he will be as consistent and persistent as he was on day one. Mr. President, therefore, I respectfully nominate Senator Ralph Recto to the position of Senate President pro tempore. And Mr. President, to second the nomination, may we recognize Senator Cynthia Villar.
Senator Cynthia Villar is recognized.
My fellow senators, I would like to nominate Senator Ralph Recto as Senate President pro tempore of the 18th Congress of the Philippines. Senator Recto has what it takes to take on the position which has previously held during the 16th and 17th Congress. We all know that he is a no-nonsense legislator and has led all the committees he chaired in exemplary manner. It is really not surprising since he came from the lineage of legal luminaries and statesmen. On top of that, he has the distinction of being the youngest member of the House of Representatives during the 9th Congress at the age of 28 years old, and the youngest senator at 37 during the 12th Congress. To say that he is adept at lawmaking is an understatement. His insights, not only in his own legislation, but in ours also, are invaluable. His expert inputs and on-point interpolation result to better crafted laws. His legislative experience is truly well-rounded in whatever side of the political fence or branch of government he may be. In the legislature, he has served as Senate President pro tempore, Senate Minority Leader, and Deputy Majority Floor Leader. Thus, he will surely hit the ground running, so to speak, if re-elected Senate President pro tempore. There is no doubt that as a nationalist and patriot, as his late grandfather and father were, Senator Ralph Recto will continue to uphold the independence and integrity of the Senate as he continues to be his brilliant self as a legislator and hopefully as our Senate President pro tempore again. With that, I wish to second the nomination of Senator Ralph Recto. Thank you very much, colleagues. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Senator Villar. The Majority Leader.
With that, no other nominations, Mr. President, on the floor. I therefore move that the period of nominations for the office of the Senate President pro tempore be closed. I so move.
Any objection? Chair hears none. The nomination is closed. Pursuant to the rules, or Rule 2 of the Rules of Senate, there being no other candidate for the position of Senate President pro tempore, the voting shall be viva voce. Those voting for Senator Ralph Recto, please say aye.
Aye.
Those voting against, say nay. Senator Ralph Recto is hereby declared and proclaimed as Senate President pro tempore. Majority Leader, may we ask the President pro tempore to join us in the rostrum? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your full name.
I, Ralph Recto,
Having been elected to the position of Senate President pro tempore,
having been elected to the position of Senate President pro tempore,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will well and faithfully discharge to the best of my ability
that I will well and faithfully discharge to the best of my ability
the duties of my present position
the duties of my present position
and of all others I may hereafter hold
and of all others I may hereafter hold
under the Republic of the Philippines,
under the Republic of the Philippines,
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the Philippines,
the Constitution of the Philippines,
that I will obey the laws, legal orders, and decrees
that I will obey the laws, legal orders, and decrees
promulgated by the duly constituted authorities,
promulgated by the duly constituted authorities,
and maintain true faith and allegiance
and maintain true faith and allegiance
to the Republic of the Philippines,
to the Republic of the Philippines,
and that I impose this obligation upon myself
and that I
voluntarily,
impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily,
without mental reservation
without mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Maraming salamat. Thank you. Thank you.
The Assistant Majority Leader is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, at this juncture, the Senate will now elect the chairman of the Committee on Rules. To make the nomination, Mr. President, may I be recognized?
Senator Villanueva, the Assistant Majority Leader is recognized for the nomination.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, my esteemed colleagues, as a former TESDA secretary, I think most of you, if not all of you, know me very well as an advocate for matching jobs and skills. I know the one fit for the job when I see one. And when it comes to the job of the chairman of the Committee on Rules, I don't think that our criteria should be limited to just knowledge, competence, and work experience. A great deal of all those, Mr. President, and more. I believe that we need a chairman who is an inspirer. We need a chairman of the Committee on Rules who, as we poetically say, treats everybody like it's their birthday while making sure that the Senate is in order. It may be the reason why until now, he is, Mr. President, the undefeated Mr. Co-op. Mr. President, my esteemed colleagues, I can find one man who will stand out in this august chamber for clearly demonstrating those out-of-the-box qualities. The son of Bukidnon, Senator Juan Miguel Migs Subiri. We need an inspirer in the Senate plenary hall so that we can always find a way to pass the much-needed laws of the land. We have seen this character exceptionally demonstrated during the last Congress when Senator Migs successfully shepherded the approval of several key pieces of legislation. It may be the reason, Mr. President, why as many as 592 Senate bills were signed into law last Congress. Mr. President, the job of a chairman of the Committee on Rules is not a bed of roses. It's never easy to be in the middle as a referee. We need the chairman of the Committee on Rules who has the natural ability to negotiate and find the common ground among the 24 republics in the Senate. Senator Migs seems to have been born with it, Mr. President. Indeed, he has a gift of making everyone feel like it's their birthday while making sure, again, that the Senate is in order. Mr. President, as your labor chair last Congress, age discrimination is not in my vocabulary. And so, don't get me wrong, Mr. President, when I say with conviction that the 18th Congress needs a Senate Majority Leader who will bridge the gap among generations. Senator Migs is obviously not only the most baby face among us, but more importantly, he is the most energetic and he can speak the language of younger Filipino generation. I believe that we need a chairman of the Committee on Rules who can communicate to our people the way in which this institution needs to, wants to, and does serve them. Mr. President, let me add that we need a chairman of the Committee on Rules who can show up every day based on the track record of Senator Migs for the past 15 years as a legislator. He certainly can do this job perfectly. Mr. President, my esteemed colleagues, I believe that Senator Migs Subiri is who we need, what the Senate needs, as chairman of the Committee on Rules of the 18th Congress. I therefore nominate Senator Juan Miguel Migs Subiri as Senate Chairman of the Committee on Rules. I so move, Mr. President.
Any other nomination?
Yes, Mr. President, to second the nomination, may we recognize the distinguished lady from Ilocos Norte, Senator Amy Marcos.
Senator Amy Marcos is recognized.
Yes, gentlemen and ladies of the Senate, it's my joy and privilege. Today, my first day here in the Senate, to nominate a dear family friend, our very own Senator Miggs, a valuable colleague from the infamous 11th Congress, not merely as a spice boy, but more importantly, as an impassioned and enlightened legislator. Without doubt, the pride of Bukidnon, he represents ably and completely the long neglected and still beleaguered island of Mindanao. Youthful merely in appearance and in energy, but sage and wise in experience. May isang munting babala lamang na wag laging sana si Senator Miggs nakikipagbulungan sa ating minamahal na Senator Drilon at pinagsosuspetsahan tayo. Biro lang po para sa ikagagaling ng Senado, para sa ikauunlad ng sambayanang Pilipino, nais kong itaguyod ang ating pinuno para sa Committee on Rules, ang ating minamahal na Juan Miguel Subiri, Senator Miggs, for Chairman of the Committee on Rules. Thank you.
Mr. President, may we also recognize the distinguished gentleman from Zambales, Senator Richard Dick Gordon.
Senator Richard Gordon is recognized.
Mr. President, I would like to withdraw while the Senate Minority Floor Leader, conducts his barrage against the Majority Floor Leader, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Minority Floor Leader. Mr. President, I would be remiss if I don't rise to nominate my good friend and fellow Red Cross volunteer, Mr. President. He is, after all, my Vice Chairman in the Red Cross, and he's done superlatively well with his passion for humanitarian pursuits, Mr. President. He's been with me in Ginsaúgon way back in the early 2000s. He's been with me in Typhoon Frank, appropriately named after the Minority Floor Leader in Iloilo. And certainly, Mr. President, in other typhoons in Albay, in Libon. And certainly, Mr. President, he has been an outstanding Majority Floor Leader. After all, he's been able to harmonize both sides of the aisle, Mr. President, to be able to convince the Minority Floor Leader to work with him in spite of the immensity of the mind and certainly knowledge of and experience of my good friend Frank Drilon is something that is by itself an accomplishment, Mr. President. Certainly, Mr. President, not only has he harmonized both views in the aisle together to vote for very, very important legislative matters in this country, Mr. President. He's also been, Mr. President, very successful in husbanding tremendous laws such as the Cooperative Development Act, Mr. President. Certainly, the law on the ease of doing business, which is a vital cog that is missing in this country. We really have to speed up the ease of doing business in this country so that we could have more investments. Certainly, in the renewable energy law, which has made him, gotten him the moniker of Mr. Clean, Mr. Energy Clean, Mr. President. And certainly, Mr. President, foremost of all, his husbanding and certainly shepherding the Bangsamoro Organic Law, Mr. President, an outstanding achievement by itself. Mr. President, I met this young man many years ago. His parents are known to me. His father played for the other school, Mr. President, in basketball. And his mother is one of the most gentle ladies I've known, apart from the fact that she's one of the loveliest ladies in the country, Mr. President. Nakaloko na naman yung Tigalasal, Mr. President. Now, Mr. President, I would just like to say that he has been very, very attentive not only of his duties here, but certainly of his family. Imagine, Mr. President, you come here every day, the first to work along with the Senate President and the last to leave, and to be able to make sure that you're able to pass legislation as well. Mr. President, Mig Subiri has done certainly Herculean efforts in trying to make sure that we get bills of an important nature to be passed here, Mr. President. So, having said that, he still has managed his time very, very well. Certainly, his wife, Audrey, is like many of our wives, are uncomplaining, but nonetheless certainly concerned that they cannot see us more often. But nonetheless, he's been a great father of his children, Adriana, Wami, and Santi, and certainly he takes them out to visit other countries and other parts of the archipelago in bonding times, which are all needed by us, Mr. President. Now, Mr. President, I would like to say also that apart from being a devoted family man, he has been most consistent in his passion and compassion, Mr. President. He's a caring, competent, and very competitive majority floor leader, and that is why in this Congress, in the 14th and 17th Congress, for which I've been privileged to be with him, Mr. President, we have passed the most number of laws in the country. For those reasons, Mr. President, I am proud and privileged to nominate Senator Miguel Fernandez Subiri, as our majority floor leader and chairman of the Committee on Rules. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Gordon. Senator Frank Drilon is recognized.
Just for the record, Mr. President, your nomination and secondment as Senate President lasted for 3 minutes, with 2 seconding senators. That of the chairman of the Committee on Rules had 3 seconding senators, and with the secondment of Senator Gordon, the nomination speeches lasted for 30 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
The Assistant Majority Leader.
Mr. President, we already have a preview of what's going to be like in the next Congress. Mr. President, no other member signifies to nominate, and so I move that we close the period of nomination.
There is a motion to close the period of nomination. Any objection? Hearing none, nomination is closed. Period of nomination is closed. Pursuant to the rules of the Senate, there being no other candidate for the position of the chairman of the Committee on Rules, the voting shall be viva voce. All those in favor or those voting for Senator Juan Miguel Subiri, please say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Juan Miguel Subiri is hereby declared and proclaimed as chairman of the Committee on Rules. Senator Frank Drilon is recognized.
Mr. President, I wish to extend our congratulations to Senator Subiri, having been elected as chairman of the Committee on Rules, and therefore the majority leader. He will continue to conspire with the minority leader for better legislation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Indeed, that is a fact. The entire country is very well aware of that already. May we ask the chairman of the Committee on Rules, the majority leader, to ascend to the rostrum. May we also ask the lovely wife to join him and other members of the family.
I'll just call my family. Thank you. Tatlo. Santi, come. Come, Santi. Come to Dada. Santi, come. Come. Stay with me. Odds. One me, Adi. It shows us Adi here. Okay.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Juan Miguel Fernandez Zubiri,
Having been elected to the position of Chairman of the Committee on Rules,
having been elected to the position of Chairman of the Committee on Rules,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will well and faithfully discharge,
that I will well and faithfully discharge,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
the duties of my present position,
the duties of my present position,
and of all others I may hereafter hold,
and of all others that I may hereafter hold,
under the Republic of the Philippines,
under the Republic of the Philippines,
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the Philippines,
the Constitution of the Philippines,
that I will obey the laws, legal orders, and decrees
that I will obey the laws, legal orders, and decrees
promulgated by the duly constituted authorities,
promulgated by the duly constituted authorities,
and maintain true faith and allegiance
and maintain true faith and allegiance
to the Republic of the Philippines,
of the Republic of the Philippines,
and that I impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily,
that I impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily,
without mental reservation
without mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Hey, shake hands, shake hands. Shake hands. Shake hands. Kiss, 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 kiss. Thank you. Thanks, boss.
We will now proceed with the election of the Secretary of the Senate. Oh yes, Senator Francis Pangilinan is recognized before we proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, to borrow the term of our minority leader, may I be allowed to make a manifestation on behalf of the minority in order for the quote-unquote conspiracy for better legislation to continue between the majority and minority in the Senate.
Yes, you may do so, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Proceed.
Mr. President, consistent with our democratic practices, consistent with our Senate rules, legislative practices, and precedents, wherein the minority selects its own leader, on behalf of the minority, Senators Ontiveros, De Lima, and this representation, we wish to inform the body that it is our desire for Senator Frank Drilon to retain his position as our leader in the minority. The depth and breadth of his Senate experience has been invaluable, not only for the minority, but also for the majority. Mr. President, Senator Drilon has done an excellent job as our leader in the previous Congress, and we wish for him to remain as such. For the record, Mr. President, the minority would like to put on record that we have selected Senator Franklin Drilon as our minority leader. And in the end, as a world leader once said, Mr. President, allow me to place on record, this world leader, John F. Kennedy, once said, without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. And I cannot think of anyone else in the minority who can ably lead us in conspiring for better legislation than Senator Frank Drilon.
Indeed, we would like to associate myself to the manifestation made by Senator Francis Pangilinan with regards to the minority leader, Senator Franklin Drilon. And therefore, we now formally recognize and elect Senator Franklin Drilon as the Senate's minority leader for the 18th Congress.
Before Mr. President, may be recognized.
Yes, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we proceed with the election of the Secretary of the Senate, I'd like to thank my colleagues, all the 24 senators that are here today, and all the people, especially my family, for supporting me in my role as Majority Floor Leader. I promise to be the pambansang MMDA. I am not the leader, Mr. President. They tell me what to do. I am their utusan. And we'll be here 24/7, every session day, to make sure that we will be able to pass all the necessary legislation that will help this country move forward. And I'd like to put on record, Mr. President, that I'm honored to be working once again with the distinguished Minority Floor Leader, former DOJ Secretary, former Executive Secretary, former Senate President, former Majority Leader, and now Minority Leader of this Senate. It's not a conspiracy of sorts, Mr. President. I learned a lot from the distinguished gentleman from Iloilo. Many of the laws that we've passed have become better laws, Mr. President, improved versions because of our distinguished Minority Floor Leader, and I thank him for that. When it comes to the people's needs at hand, he steps up, Mr. President, and helps us pass legislation that the people need and deserve. So, Mr. President, again, congratulations to the Minority Floor Leader. Now we may proceed, Mr. President, with the election of the Senate Secretary, or the Secretary of the Senate. I so move.
Yes, any objection? There being none, we will proceed with the election of the Senate Secretary. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the position of the Secretary of the Senate, I nominate Attorney Myra Marie D. Villarica. Mr. President, I so move.
Attorney Myra Marie Villarica is nominated. Any other nomination? Senator Frank Drilon is recognized.
Mr. President, we join the majority in nominating Attorney Villarica as our Senate Secretary.
Thank you, Minority Leader.
There are no other nominations aside from our distinguished Minority Floor Leader, Mr. President. I therefore move that the period of nomination be closed.
All right, the nomination is hereby closed, hearing no objection. Pursuant to Rule 2 of the Rules of the Senate, there being no other candidate for the position of Senate Secretary, the voting shall be viva voce. Those voting for Attorney Myra Marie Villarica, please say aye. Aye. Those who are against, say nay. The ayes have it. Attorney Myra Marie Villarica is hereby declared and proclaimed the Secretary of the Senate. May we ask Secretary Villarica to ascend to the rostrum and invite your colleagues or relatives.
I, Myra Marie Diola Villarica,
Having been elected to the position of Senate Secretary,
having been elected to the position of Senate of the Secretary,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will well and faithfully discharge,
that I will well and faithfully discharge,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
the duties of my present position,
the duties of my present position,
and of all others I may hereafter hold,
and of all others I may hereafter hold,
under the Republic of the Philippines,
under the Republic of the Philippines,
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the Philippines,
the Constitution of the Philippines,
that I will obey the laws, legal orders, and decrees
that I will obey the laws, legal orders, and decrees
promulgated by the duly constituted authorities,
promulgated by the duly constituted authorities,
and maintain true faith and allegiance
and maintain true faith and allegiance
to the Republic of the Philippines,
to the Republic of the Philippines,
and that I impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily,
and that I impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily
without mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are now ready to proceed with the election of the new Sergeant at Arms. Mr. President, I move that we now proceed with the elections.
Any objection? Hearing none, we proceed with the election of the Sergeant at Arms.
Mr. President, before we proceed, we'd just like to put on record the distinguished service given to us by our former Sergeant at Arms, General Balhadia. He will sorely be missed by this chamber. He occupied that seat over there on the left, the rostrum, and we're actually miss him even as we speak today, Mr. President. He did a yeoman's job of protecting the Senate and its senators from any harm, and we wish him well in the next life, Mr. President, for the record. Mr. President, for the position of Sergeant at Arms of the Senate, I nominate Major General Edgardo Rene C. Samonte. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
There are no other nominations for the position, Mr. President. I therefore move that the nominations be closed.
Any objection? Hearing none, nominations closed. Pursuant to the rules of the Senate, there being no other candidate for the position of Sergeant at Arms, the voting shall be viva voce. All those in favor, those voting for Major General Edgardo Rene Samonte, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say nay. The ayes have it. Major General Edgardo Rene Samonte is hereby declared and proclaimed as the Senate Sergeant at Arms. Maybe ask the Sergeant at Arms to join us.
I, Major General Edgardo Rene C. Samonte,
having been elected to the position of Sergeant at Arms,
having been elected to the position of Sergeant at Arms,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will well and faithfully discharge,
that I will well and faithfully discharge,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
the duties of my present position,
the duties of my present position,
and of all others I may hereafter hold,
and of all others I may hereinafter hold
under the Republic of the Philippines,
under the Republic of the Philippines,
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the Philippines,
the Constitution of the Philippines,
that I will obey the laws,
that I will obey the laws,
legal orders, and decrees
legal orders, and decrees
promulgated by the duly constituted authority,
promulgated by the duly constituted authorities,
and maintain true faith and allegiance
and maintain true faith and allegiance
to the Republic of the Philippines,
to the Republic of the Philippines,
and that I impose this obligation
and that I impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily,
without mental reservation
without mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion. So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we have several resolutions to adopt. I move that we now consider proposed Senate Resolution Number 1. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, we request the Secretary to read the title and text of the resolution.
Secretary will read the proposed Senate Resolution Number 1.
Proposed Senate's Resolution Number 1, resolution informing the President Rodrigo Roa Duterte that the Senate has been organized with the election of its officers and that this body has entered upon the exercise of its functions for the first regular session of the 18th Congress of the Philippines. Resolved by the Senate that President Rodrigo Roa Duterte be informed that the Senate has been organized with the election of its officers and that this body has entered upon the exercise of its functions for the first regular session of the 18th Congress of the Philippines. Adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt proposed Senate Resolution Number 1. I so move.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Senate proposed resolution number 1 is hereby adopted.
Mr. President, I move that we consider proposed Senate resolution number 2. I so
Any
move.
objection? There being none, consideration is in order.
May we ask the Secretary to read the title?
Secretary will read the title
And the
of
measure.
the text of the resolution.
Proposed Senate Resolution Number 2 entitled Resolution Informing the House of Representatives that the Senate has been organized with the election of its officers and that this body has entered upon the exercise of its functions for the first regular session of the 18th Congress of the Philippines. Resolved by the Senate that the House of Representatives be informed that the Senate has been organized with the election of its officers and that this body has entered upon the exercise of its functions for the first regular session of the 18th Congress of the Philippines. Adopted.
Majority
Mr. President,
Leader.
I move that we adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 2.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Senate proposed resolution number 2 is hereby adopted.
Mr. President, I move that we consider concurrent resolution number 2.
House concurrent.
House concurrent resolution number 2.
Any objection? There being none, motion is approved. Consideration is in order.
May we request the Secretary to read the resolution, Mr. President?
Secretary will read the resolution and text. Concurrent resolution number 02.
Concurrent Resolution Number 2, concurrent resolution providing for the Senate and the House of Representatives to hold a joint session to hear the message of the President of the Republic of the Philippines. Resolved by the House of Representatives, the Senate concurring that both Houses of Congress of the Republic of the Philippines hold a joint session on Monday, July 22, year 2019 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon at the Session Hall of the House of Representatives to hear the message of the President of the Republic of the Philippines.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt the House concurrent resolution number 2.
Any objection? Hearing none. Concurrent resolution number 2 is hereby adopted.
Mr. President, I move that we consider concurrent resolution number 1.
Any objection? There being none, consideration of the measure is in order.
We will ask the Secretary to read the title and the text of the resolution, Mr. President.
Secretary will read the title and the text of Senate concurrent resolution number 1.
Concurrent resolution creating a joint committee of the Senate and the House of Representatives to notify the President of the Philippines that Congress, now convened for its first regular session of the 18th Congress of the Philippines, is ready to hear his State of the Nation address in a joint session of both houses. Resolved by the Senate, the House of Representatives concurring that a joint committee of both houses of Congress be created, composed of members to be appointed by the President of the Senate and to be appointed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives to notify the President of the Philippines that Congress, now convened for its first regular session of the 18th Congress of the Philippines, is ready to hear his State of the Nation address in a joint session of both houses.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt Senate concurrent resolution number 1.
Any objection? Hearing none. Concurrent resolution number 1 is hereby adopted. We would like to appoint to the Joint Notification Committee on the part of the Senate, Senators Zubiri, Go, Recto, Villar, and Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, before we suspend session today, I know we will be tackling resolutions to honor our distinguished colleague, Senator Manny Pacquiao, for his triumphant win yesterday. But I'd just like to put on record that we in the Senate congratulate the historic win of Senator Manny Pacquiao. He has defied his age, Mr. President, at 40 years old. He puts a lot of 20-year-old fighters to shame, Mr. President. And before we go and suspend the session, we request our colleagues to remain at the session hall for a photo session. May we advise the public not to enter the hall while the photo session is ongoing. And Mr. President, there being no further business, I move that we suspend the session until 4 o'clock this afternoon, at which time we shall reconvene at the session hall of the House of Representatives to hear the State of the Nation address of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte in a joint session of both houses of Congress. And when we adjourn the joint session, the session of the Senate shall be considered adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Tuesday, July 23, 2019. I so move.
All right, before you act on the motion, we would just like to reiterate the manifestation of the Majority Leader asking our colleagues to remain at the session hall for the photo session, and we advise the public not to enter the hall while the photo session is ongoing. So is there any objection to the motion of the Majority Leader? There being none, the session is suspended until 4 o'clock this afternoon for the joint session of Congress. The members of the Senate are advised to proceed to and be seated at the session hall of the House of Representatives by or before 3:30 p.m. After the joint session, the session of the Senate shall be considered adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Tuesday, July 23, 2019. The session is now suspended until 4 o'clock this afternoon.
We will now be having the official photo shoot of the senators. There will be 3 sets. The first set will be the Honorable